Tom and Jerry was directed by Tim Story, and this movie stars Chloe Grace Moretz and Michael Pena. And this movie is based off of one of my beloved favorite cartoons of the same name, Tom and Jerry. So in this movie we have Tom and Jerry who run into each other in New York City until we meet Kayla, played by Chloe Grace Moretz, who wants to work at this fancy hotel in New York City, because the entire movie takes place in New York City. Until while Chloe Grace Moretz is working at the hotel, there were these two rich couple who we have these two rich couple who came to this fancy hotel to start their wedding. But when things got out of hand, due to Tom and Jerry ruining everything, Tom and Jerry must work together to fix things and put things back to normal. And now we got our movie. So I think I've been looking forward to seeing. So I've been looking forward to this because after watching the trailer. So when I first saw the trailer for this movie, I said, why does this movie take place in New York? Why can't this movie take place inside of a house or an apartment, just like the cartoon? I think it was. Yeah, I haven't watched the cartoon in a while, so all I know is all I know is the cartoons took place inside of a house, mostly, or any house. I don't know. So also why I was looking forward to seeing this movie is because I grew up watching Tom and Jerry. I love Tom and Jerry, the cartoon itself. I love the sound effects. I love I love how Tom and Jerry just like chasing each other around the house, or just like throwing stuff at each other, or beating each other up, or making really cool sound effects. So that's some really cool stuff in the Tom and Jerry cartoon. And this movie is the same thing, mostly. So I think I really like this movie because to me I had so much fun watching Tom and Jerry. So actually, the movie itself, the live action. So let's get into the positive. So what I like about this movie is Tom and Jerry themselves, their animation. They're animated the entire movie. They're not CGI, they're just animated. So I think what Warner Brothers did with this movie, so what they did with the film is decided, so I think what Warner Brothers did is go back to basics for what they did with Looney Tunes, Back in Action. If y'all remember, because y'all remember Looney Tunes Back in Action. Well, some of y'all do, some of y'all don't. So I understand. So remember Looney Tunes Back in Action when they had the Looney Tunes in our world? Well, with this movie, it's the same thing. So Tom and Jerry, so I think what Warner Bros. Did is go back to basics. Instead of making Tom and Jerry CGI, they decided to make them animation into the real world, which is actually a really cool thing. So I was surprised that Warner Bros. Decided to go back to basics. And that's what I liked about this movie. And what else I like about this movie is the sound effects from the cartoon, because I think there's some sound effects that's took from the cartoon and put into the movie. Because you know how Tom screams like, ah! Just like that. Whenever, like, let's say his fingers are let's say his fingers are like crushed or something like that. Or let's say his fingers got crushed by a hammer thanks to Jerry. Which actually got me laughing. So that's what I like about the movie of Tom and Jerry. But the whole movie, Tom and Jerry are not the only animated characters in this movie. So they're not the only animated characters in the movie. We have Spike the dog. Y'all may know Spike the dog from the cartoon. I think I like Spike. Spike was a cool dog in this movie because you know how he feels about Tom. Like he's just like, I'm gonna beat you up, Tom. Let me tell you something, you pussycat. If I catch you near here again, you're dead. Okay, and that's what Tom looks like. Okay, okay. So that's what I like about Tom and Jerry. They just chase each other around, and that's it. That's all they do. They're frenemies. They're not friends, but they're frenemies. Because I said, why can't they just be friends for once? Just have a great relationship. Just have a great friendship. Just for once, Tom and Jerry. Just for once in your life. Have a great relationship. Y'all can't just like fight and argue like y'all did since the cartoon. Since the cartoon. So that's all I know. So like I said, Tom and Jerry are not the only animated characters in the movie. We have these birds. If y'all seen the trailer for this movie, there was these. If y'all have not or have seen the trailer for this movie, there was these birds who are also animated, and then when I watched this whole movie, why? So I'm not gonna get. You know what? I'm not gonna give anything away. Y'all have to watch the movie. So that's all I gotta say. It's great to see Spike again. It's great to see Tom and Jerry all animated instead of making them CGI. That's all I gotta say for Tom and Jerry. So I'm not gonna say anything much about. I'm not gonna say anything much. So what I think of the human characters, I feel like they're taking over the whole movie. And I gotta say to myself, what I gotta say about this? Chloe Grace Moretz, she's okay. I think I like Chloe Grace. I like Chloe Grace Moretz as an actress. I like Chloe Grace Moretz as an actress. I liked her in the Kick-Ass movies. I liked her in I don't know. I haven't watched any of her movies in a while, but I liked her in this movie. I think she's okay in this movie, but I think she only made me laugh one time in this movie. She only made me laugh one time. And Michael Pena, who's also in this movie, Michael Pena, who's also in this movie, he's okay too. But I'm not going to blame him. But I feel like the human characters, like I said, the human characters are taking over the spotlight. I feel like the movie is just all like, let's focus on the humans. I said, no, let's focus on Tom and Jerry. That's what the movie needs. Focus on Tom and Jerry. We don't need humans right now. Remember in the cartoon we had a couple of humans. We had a couple of human characters. But we had a couple of human characters in the cartoon. We had probably a few human characters in the cartoon. And also, I want this movie to have more focus, more screen time, more focus with Tom and Jerry, and less focus on the human characters. This is like watching a Michael Bay Transformers movie where you have more focus on the humans and less focus on the Transformers themselves. But this movie does the same thing. It does remind me of some of Michael Bay's Transformers movies due to the fact that the human characters are getting more focus and let's say Tom and Jerry getting less screen time. See, that's what I'm saying. And I said, why can't this movie have more focus on Tom and Jerry? Because Tom and Jerry needs more screen time. Because that's what I want for this movie. I understand this movie's made for kids, and I'm not gonna trash this movie because I love this movie, but I want this movie to have more focus on Tom and Jerry, but not just Tom and Jerry, but also Spike the dog himself as well. But this movie's all about Tom and Jerry just chasing each other around, not getting along, something like that. And that's what this movie needs. Tom and Jerry just running around, just doing this and doing that. That's it. But the movie doesn't really the movie is made for kids. Like I said, this movie's not made for me. This movie is absolutely 100% for kids. I know that young kids, because mostly I don't think young kids in our generation probably may or may not do not know nothing about Tom and Jerry like I did when I was about their age. So I think young kids are going to have so much fun with this movie, but there's some stuff in this movie that teaches kids that really bothers me. There's some jokes in there's some fart jokes, some poo jokes or something. There can be some fart jokes or let's say poop jokes, which I don't understand why we need that in a kids movie. Come on. Why can't this movie just be better? This movie to have a really good message to kids, but the movie doesn't really give you any messages at all. But only one. Just one message which is about friendship, relationship, and stop being frenemies for once. See? That's all I know for this movie. So, I feel like the story for this movie doesn't make any sense. I think Tim Story did an amazing job with Tom and Jerry, making them more animation instead of making them CGI. So, I want this movie to have more focus, like I said, I want this movie to have more focus on Tom and Jerry. So one thing that I liked about Tom and Jerry is their movie, not this one that just came out this month. I'm talking about, if y'all remember Tom and Jerry the movie, which came out in the 1990s, that was actually one of my favorites. I actually love Tom and Jerry the movie, which came out in the 1990s. It's a movie made for kids. This Tom and Jerry's made for kids, because if you grew up watching Tom, if you adults out there, if you're adults out there, if you grew up watching Tom and Jerry. If you grew up watching Tom and Jerry the cartoon or the animated movie which came out in the 1990s, you might like this movie or not, or say, why ain't Tom and Jerry getting much screen time? What's going on? But Tom and Jerry are also, but mostly Tom and Jerry are getting a little bit more, a little bit more screen time. But I said no, they need more screen time because this movie's all about them just chasing each other and being frenemies like they always are. So I think that's it for Tom and Jerry because I actually grew up watching Tom and Jerry, and I'm not gonna trash this movie at all. So I want this movie to be better. Let's say they made imagine they made a sequel to this movie. Imagine they made a sequel to this movie and say, matter of fact, let's have this movie take place inside of a house versus outside of a city or something like that. And I'm gonna say, now we're talking. Now y'all finally listen to the fans. But let's say the fans of the Tom and Jerry cartoon say, why does this movie take place in New York? I want this movie to take place entirely inside of a house or an apartment. This movie reminds me of one of my favorites. It's Who Framed Roger Rabbit. This movie reminds me of Who Framed Roger Rabbit. This movie reminds me of Who Framed Roger Rabbit and Looney Tunes Back in Action due to animated characters in our world. So I think that's all I gotta say for Tom and Jerry. So there's nothing much to say about Tom and Jerry. So that's all I gotta say for this movie review for Tom and Jerry. I actually had so much fun with this movie, even though this movie's not made for me though. Who knows? So that's all I gotta say for Tom and Jerry. So be sure to like, subscribe, press notification button, follow me on Instagram, comment down below, and I'll see you on my next video. Thank you for watching.